I'm Kelly Novak. We're here in Tampa, Kansas. My son Chris, and we started no-till probably a little over 20 years ago, and thought it was a good time. I hated it took so long to do the field work, and we saw enough of these no-till on the plains, different experiments where they show how water will just tear heck out of the ground by making wash out areas, and felt having cover on the ground would be a good way to go. And so we pretty much sold the discs and all the equipment to go right into it, so we didn't have any excuse to go back and work the ground. Not that we wanted to, but anyway, from what we saw, having the cover on the ground, the shade, we could see water holding capacity. And of course, the way it is here, this 2023, there's not much water to hold. But we're trying to capture everything we can. And we got into cover crops, and because we wanted a way to utilize cattle on the cropland. So it's kind of a win-win situation with having covers for feed for cattle and a place to put the cattle, and let them disperse the manure out there in the field.
Yeah, that was the big thing about the cattle. And then we use kind of a rotational grazing. So we kind of show them where they can be instead of leaving them on the whole field. We'll give them so much at a time so they're not trampling over everything. And we kind of like make sure they finish this part so they're not walking a half a mile to water or a mile to water. They kind of just have a little area. They finish that, and then we'll move them on down. And then that's where our waters come in handy. And we've put waters throughout fields, a couple fields, just so that we're getting them closer to the place we want to have them instead of them walking all the way back and all the way. So that's been a good thing for us lately.
And it's good too. The cattle are electric fence trained, and you have calmer cattle. You see them more often, and they're not spooked. I mean, it's a benefit for the cattle to be out there in the field. It really is.
And then you can keep your eye more on them, because then during calving and stuff, we're out there all the time too. And it just even makes tagging their calf easier because they're used to you instead of you just going out there every so often and seeing them. But then they know right when. They've pretty much learned when you're out there with a four-wheeler, they'll come to the fence. They know they're moving on to something better, and they move really easy. You know, you'd think you have to go gather them up to move them all the time, but they learn, and they see out there getting ready. They hear that clicking of that twine reel, and they're in the next paddock as soon as you start picking it up. So actually, and it's a lot easier on us, really.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we do windrow grazing, which is sedan, which is a big benefit. We don't have to bale it up. We can just leave it out there in the field. And that feed we do that just before it freezes. We'll swat it down, and that feed, which I'm talking about sedan, it holds its value. It does not deteriorate. There's enough air gets through it where you get a rain or snow or something, it won't deteriorate. It'll hold its value, and that's why we like to do it for the freeze, so all the sugars are up in the plant yet.
And then it'll sit out there till November, December, and we'll still be grazing it. Mm-hmm. And then what we've also tried to do is go in between the windrows, because we'll rake it sometimes and drill interseed in between the windrows so the cattle can pack it in, or if we get enough rains, it's already coming up for them to have something else out there along with the sedan. Well, we did triticale
and vetch.
And vetch and little rape. That would be in probably October,
November. Mm-hmm. Actually, depending on the year, you can about seed any time of the year you want.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I learned in no-till too, is that you want to keep the shield on that soil. And so anytime you can grow something, get something in there growing, even if it's a short period of time, that's not a problem. You think, well, I'm wasting the seed, but there's more with the root structure. There's more benefits underneath the ground a lot of times than above.
And that's another thing we're trying this year. We grew a lot more corn than we normally do, but we're going to go interseed when the corn's getting ready to die. We're going to go fly a drone over the corn and put seed out there, like turnips and rape and vetch. And,
I like veg, and probably
and little triticale
or annual
ryegrass we'll put right there before we even harvest the corn, so that it can maybe start growing before we get it harvested, and then the cattle out to graze the corn
As it
stalks.
drops its leaves, it'll kind of help that germinate, help the seed germinate.
Mm-hmm. Plus, it'll be shaded.
With your watering, are you on mostly owned ground or rented ground? So is your watering permanent or something that?
All our field waterings come from owned ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now we do have field doesn't have. We can't find water,
Yeah.
but we have real water. They're close, so we piped in real water.
Mm. Well, and we, for the most part, we don't have to, but there are places that, like here, they have to walk so far. So we're like, okay, let's haul them water maybe, because we want this pasture to kind of heal a little bit. So,
or we're talking about trenching a line too. It's when you have the well, it's easier. Like we have a field just 1/10 of a mile from here, and that well goes a mile. We have a ground water line that goes a mile, so we just have a hydrant on another place across 2 roads, actually.
yeah. Well, I was just going to say there's a few other things that we've been trying. Is like we put fertilizer with an air seeder in the ground. So we put all the fertilized nitrogen that we needed in the ground before we went and planted corn here a month before, so that the nitrogen would be available instead of streaming it out the back or broadcasting it on top. And then planted the corn right into it after a month after we did that. And that's something new we're trying, because we started seeing results with another guy that did this, where he did it with milo, and he did it in a couple fields, and the only place that he did that, it was like 60 bushel more compared to the other. But I mean, that was a dry year and it was different ground, so that's just, I think, but we couldn't believe the difference, and there was nothing else done different except he put fertilizer in the ground instead of broadcasting it over the top. We tried to do a check strip so we can see where we did it, but and then try to go broadcast it like you would normally, but we haven't broadcast it yet, so I got to do that sometime.
If you have a good idea, this is going to work, why change it?
Well, and the thing is like,
we know how the other work.
I'll just ask the neighbor what they made on their corn right across the road. But no, so that was just something that we're kind of looking at doing. We're going to plant more row crop this year, so we can interseed it. That's going to be our newest thing that we're really going to try this year, is interseeding into standing crops instead of waiting for the crop to come off before you can go put seed out there. So that's what we're trying to get more grazing for cattle, kind of keep it that way. We're mainly doing a bunch of beans, but then we are starting to see how the lack of moisture in the last couple of years, after you mow that all off and you try to go get something in, if you have a milo stalk out there, you can see where the snow drift is. That milo stalk will catch that snow, and you go look at a bean field and there's no snow left on it. It blew all into the ditch. So
along with the leaves.
Yeah. So we're thinking that maybe we need to go with more row crop and see how that does compared to just basically taking everything off the ground, and maybe build up our reserves with moisture by snow drifts and stuff like that in our field instead of in the ditch. So, and then that's where we thought, then we came like, okay, what else can we do? And we're like, okay, we want to graze our milo stalks after we get them off. So why don't we go try to put something out there that can be growing in the milo, when the milo's, it takes so long for it to mature after it gets to a certain point where maybe we catch a couple rains there in September, October, where that stuff can start coming up as you're getting ready to cut the milo off.
But that's going to be very experimental, because the milo plant puts out a toxin, and it really hinders seed from germinating. We tried that probably 12 years ago, flew turnips on milo, and thought we had a decent stand there, and then they just kind of died off. So I don't know if we found the right plant that we can think it would work.
And now that you got safe and seed now with Milo, which is a lot different than before too.
Well, I don't know. It's we're gonna
experiment.
We're just
so we'll probably try triticale, and I mean we'll have test strips of that for sure to see what we get. Now, if we don't get the rain, it's really not going to matter.
Yeah, that's what.
But then maybe the cattle, after they grazed it, they'll tromp it in. Then if the seed's still there, they can tromp it in, and then we might see if it comes up after that then.